First, he's going to tell you about some procedures in the craft before we talk about some things. Isn't that what you wanted to talk about? Okay.
Maybe the ones of you who just came up had some questions about the note writing. Is that right? Do you all have any? Or maybe it's just mentioned to us. People are questioning what procedure that we sent down with the last group. Did y'all have a chance to see it before? Do y'all have any questions about it? In other words, we have people are writing too many notes. It's just simple as that. And it isn't Satellite 3's total job to answer notes. They have many other things to do besides that, right? And so we feel like it's time that you all begin to exert a little bit more maturity in that way. And for a while there, you
ones who are too free to
just write a note to Satellite 3 about a procedure, about somebody doing something wrong or whatever it was that you write notes about. But Satellite 3 gets quite a few. Like, I don't know if these were actually counted, but at times they've gotten about 50 notes in a day. Is that not right? It's pretty close. Huh?
That isn't an exaggeration.
Now that's ridiculous. I mean, that's absolutely ridiculous. If you all were a bunch of little babies, we could understand about those. But there are procedures for just about everything. And if you think Satellite 3 is there to answer your questions and your procedure questions, then you are mistaken, because you are falling down on the job when you write notes about procedures. Now, we sent on the yellow slip a paper that we sent back. I don't know if it was yellow by the time it got back, but anyway, that's where it was when it left links, and it was to be rewritten. But anyway, on the instruction sheet that went back with the last group, we said that the individual who questions a procedure gets a check partner, and then if they can't come up with the answer, then they research it in the procedure book. Then if you can't find an answer, then you write it to not to Links, but to Satellite 3. Now, and they in turn, if they can't come up with the answer, then it comes up here. But,
and if they come up with an answer, then they inform us what kind of answer they came up with.
Right. We had that procedure sat down, and I don't know what kind of notes Satellite 3 has been getting. But if it's writing about individuals breaking procedures, then I would question the individual, because only a couple individuals write a whole bunch of notes, if I understand it correctly. It isn't a note from everybody in the craft, and maybe one person writes 2 notes, which would, if everybody wrote 2 notes, there would be, well, you all can add that. And so you don't really have it, but if I understand it correctly, there are just a few individuals who write an awful lot of notes. Is that correct? And if I were those individuals, I would question whether or not is this note really, before I would write another note, we're going to ask them. They know who they are. And I want them, if they'll agree, to ask themselves, before they write another note to Satellite 3, we want them to question whether or not, is this note really necessary? Or am I being too free to write without thinking it out? And this leads up to the question, to what we want to talk to you about. But I hope that's all the questions that we have about. I think we also a question of whether or not to wait 24 hours before somebody breaks the procedure. Well, you're supposed to wait 3 days before writing a breaking procedure note, right? So why would you wait another day? In other words, you're supposed to see that procedure broken 3 times, which would be 3 different days, before you write a broken procedure report, right? So why would you wait a fourth day before doing it? You've already waited 3 times. So this is what we want you all to try to reason these things out. Believe it or not, you have that ability to reason some things out if you exercise that ability. And we want you to really develop it. And I'm not being sarcastic. I'm trying to be funny, but it may come across sarcastic on the tape. But we want you to believe who you are. Every time you use your mind, you bring in more mind. And every time you bring in more mind, you will learn who you are one time. And so why pass up the opportunity to use your mind by sitting down and writing a note? That uses no mind at all. Usually it's done in criticism to somebody. You don't really want to know. If you really want to know, you would research the answer. You see the logic there?
And certainly not write a note when you're upset or when you're flustered or
right.
whatever it is.
That is another note that you would wait 24 hours for. If you're upset over someone's actions, if you, and we have also asked them if somebody writes a note that does not fall in isn't written right, or it's written before something, before the procedure, such as when something happens and you write a note immediately instead of waiting for the time period to elapse, then we've asked Satellite 3 to give the notes back to that individual and explain to them what happened. Now, when they give you the note back, that doesn't mean you take up their time talking about why you wrote the note. In other words, you're letting that booger do its thing. And if you're a Satellite 3 person, you certainly wouldn't take up the talk time period defending yourself. You see what I'm saying? That is one, if you have that problem, then work on it. Get busy and work on it and correct it so that you will not allow the booger to have its fun. You might as well go ahead and have sex, because that's what you're doing when you're doing something like that. And it is
giving into it.
You're giving into it. That's how serious it is. You are getting rid of the problem that the booger is presenting to you instead of trying not to give into it. Can you all see that? So, again, we don't want you, if you are a Satellite 3 person, we don't want you to take up the time of the other Satellite 3 people defending yourself. If you don't understand about why a note was given back to you, then go meditate on that particular problem. Sit in silence and try to pull in why that note was returned. Even if you're not a Satellite 3
Taking the higher side, don't pull in a lower interpretation.
Right, don't go and say, well, the only reason they gave it back to me because they had so many notes in the read mine, or make up some reason like that. What you want to do is go and say, well, yeah, they must have known that I was capable of coming up with the right answer, and that is why they gave it back to me. They don't need us to give the answer to that question. All of these little incidents that occur in your craft or to you will help you to develop in your weakest area. And if you allow your booger to come in and blind you to it and have his way about things, then you are throwing that lesson down the drain. You're not accomplishing what the lessons are supposed to do for you. In other words, you might as well stop asking for lessons or for improvement, because if this is how you want to handle it, then you're just wasting it. And there's no sense putting yourself through that kind of stress, plus everybody else. So If you want lessons, then accept them in a mature way and try to handle them. And even though you may not understand, take that incident and know that the person from Satellite 3 is not trying to be ugly or trying to get back at you in some way or whatever it is that comes into your mind, but that they are trying to follow procedure to the letter as much as they're capable of. So what you want to do is take that incident and you try to follow procedure the best that you can. And if you don't understand it, then don't try to get them to make you understand it. Just go and sit in a quiet place, meditate on that, and see if you can't come up with the answer. And I can guarantee you, once you begin to exercise that particular muscle in your head, believe it or not, it will come very easy each time you try to do it. Okay? I'll turn this.
Well, this is maybe pertinent, maybe not, to what we're about to talk about, but I thought we'd throw it in for the sake of those at the craft, because it's interesting that there have been some clouds hanging around outside the retreat craft today that have been very interesting. And
did you all see that? Look like spacecraft.
I was awake most of the night, and when it was light enough to see clouds, and even I could see them in the moonlight, these clouds were hanging around, and they're round to oval to cigar-shaped and kind of have thin petticoats around them, just like they're almost made of layers of thick and thin. I think you've probably seen clouds like this, but it certainly is a good, these kind of clouds are certainly good cover for something else being inside. Don't know, but it's interesting that these clouds are here at the time that T and Do have received a lot of new information, and which occurred last night and in the night and today. And a lot of it is extremely advanced information is the best word I can think of to label it, because it's advanced in that it's very, very difficult to put the information in words that are discernible, or that would clearly express what it is that we came to know. And a lot of it we can't express to you, but a lot of it, or a part of what we will express to you, will challenge you, because now T and Do know who they are, and we know who you are, and we know it clearly, and we don't. It's not that we suspect it. It's not that we're not saying that the picture that we have received might not clarify more later on and get more specific. But it's what we have received is clear enough that we can say to you that we know who we are, and we know more clearly our relationship with you, our relationship with other older members, a more clear identification of the task that we have for the next level in relationship to you, and the roles that we play in that task for next level. We have seen certain aspects of those roles, but now we see them in a larger perspective. This has nothing to do with names. It has to do with position. I made positions the word. Station, task. And like we said a moment ago, it's kind of funny that this information came in at the same time we had this windstorm and these clouds that seemed to almost be immovable by the winds. Because we had, during the night and the day, we had some pretty strong winds. It seemed like every time I tried to doze off in the night, things, trees banging on the building would wake me up every time I would doze, just like they weren't going to permit me to rest any more than that. But I didn't mind, because every time I awakened, I enjoyed being awake, thinking about this new information, trying to get it in perspective that we could talk about it. And T and I don't know exactly how much we can share with you. I can, from a personal standpoint, not a human standpoint, but from a personal standpoint, I can see that this clarification is going to change a little bit of my attitude with you and with myself and with T for the remainder of whatever time it is that we're here. In other words, it might at times, I think, from the beginning of our getting the instruction to send out whatever it was that we sent out that brought you all together to get you to start to awaken and get busy with this phase of what you were doing. From that time until now, I think that probably too many times, maybe not too many times, it might have been proper, but Doe has been very lenient and understanding of things that you were dealing with. And I think part of the reason that I felt, don't misunderstand lenient and understanding, in other words, it must have been because of what the forces of this planet dealt me, and not in caution, because I wasn't exactly sure who I was, even though I thought I knew a little bit about the role that I was playing. But there must have been unconsciously still an element of doubt there, or I wouldn't have been so permissive to slow understanding on your part. And now that it has been clarified who you are and what you're doing and why you're doing it to us, and the part we play in it, and the extreme kindness of the next level in giving you the opportunity that they are giving you to come down into a hell, so to speak, or come down into a jail that the next level has prepared for Satan or Lucifer and his angels. And for them to have you here in order to give you the opportunity to prove that you can replace them, to give you the opportunity to prove that you can resist and overcome the forces of this planet, Lucifer and his angels, his helpers, and not only resist and overcome, but in other words, those who are going to take the place of those who were kicked out have to be strong enough to do what they were doing. In other words, you have to prove that you would not also weaken as his helpers weakened, who followed him.
He's talking about Lucifer, right?
Yeah, I keep thinking I said that. Have I not said that? Well,
I think Lucifer's standing there with his angels.
Okay.
Because Lucifer and the ones were cast out. right? And you all are being prepared to take the place, not of Lucifer, but what Lucifer was doing, and Lucifer and his host, as he calls them, were doing in the next level.
In other words, part of you all will be assigned certain responsibilities. Now let's just talk in terms that we can understand it, and it may not be accurate, but we'll just talk in these terms for a few minutes. When the chief had put up with Lucifer and his those who had sided with him, those who began to listen to him, those that began to think that he knew more what was right and talked a more intellectual game or whatever, were just hunting for words to try to help you understand how Lucifer and his angels would work. When the chief had tolerated their renegade ways and their ego and their thinking that they could compete in a way, Lucifer thinking he could compete, and his helpers believing that he could, almost like going with a political party, even though Lucifer was nothing more than another member of the next level who began to let his own mind re-enter, or let his individual thinking begin to think that he could have some authority on his own. It's like losing the knowledge of the importance of the chain of command through check partners and older members to the chief, and thinking that I don't really need that. I've learned enough from that, and I can now exercise these things on my own. Well, when the chief began to get fed up of having to deal with that, he confined them. It's almost like he took them. When you have the legends or the Bibles say that he threw them out of heavens and put them on the earth. But don't forget, the earth is in the heavens. So, and they may have been here and 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 here, and he found a spot, a single spot, where he made them all go, so that he could keep them in control. And they never accepted the fact that even though he had the ability to put them there, that they couldn't regain, they still believed that they could regain strength and momentum and get back into the heavens and compete, so to speak. They didn't accept the position of being jailed. And to this day, they have not accepted that position. So they came from different places, and they were put here, and they were confined here. And on this place, the Lord, well, I don't want to say much about that, but there also was a segment of this garden that still the members of the kingdom of heaven are next level members. There was still a segment of this garden that was used for certain positive things that the next level was using. Okay?
I think that...
Am I skipping too much?
No, I think...
I want to say that.
I think we can stop there.
Okay.
What's most important is...
Okay. Go ahead.
Oh, you want me to...
And then I'll pick it up.
Okay. The most important thing is that it's time now that you all really realize who you are. In other words, since we know who we are, it's time now that you begin to know who you are and realize that the task you have to do can no longer be considered beneath you. In other words, you all have got to become more keen toward the force, the booger's little game that it's playing. In other words, you have got to prove, and you've got to realize something. Doe said that out of kindness to you, plus not only kindness, but because somebody cares about you, that you have been given this opportunity to be able to conquer, and you are being exposed to the big daddy of the Lucifer force. Okay, we'll put it that way. The real force. And it is for a reason, because you're not going to be placed in any position in the heavens, in the next level, if you are capable of being conned by the lower forces, such as Lucifer.
Until such time as you have proven that you can resist, rise above, see Lucifer and his angels for what they are, and convince older members that you would not, like T said, be conned by them. Until that time, you cannot be placed in responsible positions and be trusted. And this is back to what, I didn't mean to interrupt you, but it's, in other words, the biggest thing that the next level could do for you was to put you down here and to have you do what you are doing by gaining strength. Now, while you, or before you were put here, Lucifer and his forces knew you were coming. They knew you were coming because they knew that their place in heaven had to be replaced, had to be filled. And they knew that there was a strong likelihood that Lucifer's smart. He is smart. He is evil, but he is smart. He is wise and he is cunning. Now, the next level, since Lucifer knew that you all were coming, and his angels knew that you were coming, they were so busy prior to your coming, brainwashing or setting up the computers of all human vehicles to make the human life seem to you when you came as the norm, because they knew you would come asleep. They knew that you would have to come asleep. And so they saw to it that the nations were multiplied to the extent that when you got here, all of the things that are the conduct of the lower forces, you would see as good, normal, the way things are. Raise money, have children, do all these things that bind you to this planet. And it would be like so that if you thought any differently, you would suspect that you were off base, that everybody else was on base. And it was so strong that when you came, you had to even exert some extraordinary strength at that phase of your awakening to recognize that what we were saying was for you. Even though because of who you are and because of who we were, you knew our voices and you recognized the thoughts that we had, or you wouldn't have been here. Even though you were already so brainwashed and so programmed that you approached us and this information with extreme caution and suspicion and doubt, even though something about you wouldn't let go of the fact that you recognize those two who say what they say. Something about you knew that. But all this other about you was saying, no, no, no. But that one thing about you said, I've got to go this way. Okay. Now, for a while, dealing with the lower forces at a pace that we now see as too slow, for a while that pace was acceptable, even though not really acceptable, because we were programmed to push you, and make you work as fast as you could, even though the pace that you would go, even as we pushed, is to us now as very slow. So if you're going to awaken to who you are and to know who you are, not wonder if this is who I am, but if you're going to know who you are, then you have got to very quickly make firm decisions in your head and in your mind and with your brain as to, I am not going to be tolerant of myself in yielding to any of the forces of this world, and even its minor forms. Because the longer it takes me to start living like a member of the next level, abiding by procedures, having good foresight, knowing the earmarks of the lower forces as they approach me, quickly learning to resist them, standing on my feet enough to prove to the next level that I am worthy of something that they might choose to give me. When they say, I have had enough of this test, I can go back and accept some assignments. Am I leaving out too much? Am I skipping too much? In other words, we feel now that we know that you have been given this opportunity because you can accomplish it. And we don't feel like it would be to your advantage for us to pat you along the way any longer, or for you to want to be patted along the way. And because by now you should recognize the things that before caused you to need to be patted. Okay? Why? The lower forces, listening to the lower forces is what brings tears, hurt, embarrassment, all those things. Those are not feelings of the next level. Can you not see that? Those are not feelings of the next level. So, like when T used to say that members of the next level shoot straight and they're tough, it does not mean they're crude and they're harsh, nor they're hard. But the lower forces would have you see it that way in order for you not to get on course quickly as a new lesson comes your way. It would have you waller in hurt or feel, listen to doubt, or listen, I can't make it. I've tried this and I can't seem to lift that. Oh, that's ridiculous. Now, that is ridiculous. Now, for you to listen to things like that. Because we know who you are. You don't know, but you're going to wake up one of these days and it's going to dawn on you who you are, and you're going to say, great Scott, I've gotten comfortable with this class, being in a class. I've even gotten so comfortable that I'm willing to stay in the class almost indefinitely. If you take an attitude of being willing, that doesn't mean that you would, as an alternative, get out of the class. But it means that you should not be willing for the classroom to exist indefinitely. Shouldn't like the classroom. It is not right to like the classroom. It's right to appreciate the classroom. It's right to appreciate what the classroom offers. But it is also right that you hurt with all of your might to finish the class as quickly as you can finish it, which means that you have got to be more severe on yourself, not putting yourself down. Don't misinterpret what we're saying. Don't waste that time. Don't let that booger come in to put yourself down. But it means just recognizing things, correcting things, and doing them. Always using a check partner, always going by instructions, not listening to others that could influence you, and yet using the processes that are given you to stand tall and strong, and as if you are attempting to get in front of the monitor of the next level and say, see, I can do what members of the next level do. I can be strong. I can resist these forces that are so strong that would swallow me up if it was not for your ways. And that I love the ways of the next level. Goodness, you all have got to have a motivation that has more oomph behind it, so that your deadline on yourself is shortened.
Let me add something.
Sure. I'm sorry, I'm getting excited.
Okay. I think it's good. The reason the individual who sent you all here, we believe, is the chief. We feel like his judgment picked you out of the ones in the next level and said, I want these individuals to come here and to go through this test because I feel like they're up for promotion and could fill these positions that are available. Now, the chief is usually never wrong. I would say that he is never wrong. I don't mean to say he's usually never wrong. I mean, I would say that he's 100% wrong. I mean, right. Am I saying the wrong thing? I don't want that bolt of lightning to come down. But he is always right. And because of that, then he knows that all of you can fill that position. Now, the thing of it is, it isn't guaranteed. If it was guaranteed, then all the ones who were in the class would be all sitting here, right? But he has something picked out for them. In other words, there's always an alternate plan. But the fact that you all are sitting here at this time means only one thing, that you are capable. Now, I must also say that you all are very capable of listening to your boogers and being calmed still into the booger causing you to let things slip out of your mouth innocently or to see somebody in a distorted light. And I'm not trying to put you down. I'm just trying to make you realize that the purpose for your coming here you have not totally accomplished. And it's time now that you devote as much time to doing this as you possibly can. The chief wants you to accomplish this. We want you to accomplish it. Now, the purpose of your being here is to prove that you can overcome the forces of this garden. Now, show the chief that you can do it. Show him. Show us that you can do it. You're doing it better than what you used to do. Could do it. that you need to do it in a more better way, in a more right way, in a stronger way. In other words, he still thinks, well, I can come in anytime I want to, And you might say, oh yeah, just try it. And so he tries it, sure enough, he can come.
But some of the ways that he has worked on you, you have almost accepted as characteristics of your vehicles, and you have almost accepted as a habit. In other words, some of the ways that the lower forces can work on you, you have almost accepted as part of you.
That's my vehicle acting that way. I can't control it, which is a bunch of malarkey. If you can say I can't control it, that means that you are weak in that area, and you don't want to allow it to happen. You want to work on it.
Don't accept any weaknesses. Don't accept that these are mine, and they're, we all have ours. She has hers, he has his, and these are mine. That is deadly to you, to accept weaknesses. Those might have been weaknesses that you had, but don't you accept that you have them, or that you're going to have them the next time you're tempted to be weak in that area. Because if you accept them as weaknesses, you might as well say to Lucifer and his helpers, come on and hit me in that area because I'm weak. And if I fall, then I'll accept because that's my weak area. That is accepting defeat. Now, when T said that there are some jobs that would be open that you will fill, it's also in order for you to have any responsible tasks in the next level, no matter whether they are great or small, but for you to have responsible tasks in the next level, you have to become wiser and stronger. Now, how do you become wiser and stronger? By working, by learning through the experience of resisting and working against forces that would defeat you. It's like wisdom comes from the exertion of effort in battle. When you overcome a battle, you have learned 1,000 times what you knew prior to that battle, when the battle has been completed. And every time there was an encounter in that battle, as you licked that encounter, you grew in wisdom and in stature and in likeness of a member of the next level. And it's when you can grow like that that you are equipping yourself for some responsibility, to be something other than just membership in the next level. Can you understand that? You don't want to. The next level doesn't want you to just be a member. They don't want to wonder about what would happen to you if they gave you responsibility. Would you maybe do what this group did? Would you maybe weaken in those areas? So what would be the best thing they could do to you is get you past the most severe thing that would be questionable about you by subjecting you right down to the heart of Lucifer and his forces and his helpers firsthand, and letting you prove yourself and letting you develop in that strength.
You've got to remember also that you have a strong mind in that vehicle. Now, as you bring your mind in more, your vehicle will respond in all kinds of crazy ways, according to the habit of that vehicle or the characteristic of that vehicle. But as you get that mind in, your vehicle will take on the characteristic of that mind. Now, let's say that your vehicle now feels like, oh, I couldn't possibly do any task that's of responsibility, I get too hyper, or I get too nervous, or I cry too easily, or whatever it is that you have that weakness in. Well, that is your booger or your vehicle talking. Because once your mind gets in strong enough, your vehicle will no longer have the characteristics that it has. It will have the characteristics of that mind.
That mind could drag any vehicle. Once that mind is strong enough in that vehicle, it doesn't matter what the prior weaknesses of that vehicle might have been that Lucifer had taken advantage of.
But you have to be able to get that vehicle, getting the vehicle under control is what you need to do to get your mind into your vehicle. Did I say that right? In other words, as you bring your mind in, you are faced with all of these obstacles of whether or not you're strong enough to overcome Lucifer's force. Now, as you bring in your mind, how can I handle this circumstance? How can I handle this circumstance to the best of my ability according to procedure? Now, if you are upset with somebody, then there has to be a booger involved, right? So what you want to do is get that vehicle calm enough to see what it was that was causing it to be upset and realize that it had no reason to be upset, even if somebody hit you in the face with a mashed potato bowl or something, spoon. You can choose to is always the booger. It's always the booger. To respond in a way, at least I reasoned it out and came to the conclusion that they could be right, and that I'm not always right. Did you understand that? Normally, when you write a note, let's use the note writing as an example, you write a note because you think you're right and somebody else is wrong. Now, what you want to do is reason it out to see if maybe that person's response wasn't right, and give them credit for thinking that they just might be right and you could be wrong, and that the reaction you're having is because my booger wants me to respond like a human responds. They get upset. They want to defend themselves. They want to tell that person that they're not right and that they had no right to act that way, and so on. Now, let's see that.
I don't want to interrupt.
Well, I feel like you can come in.
Okay. One big point that we wanted to make in this meeting was understanding what we now understand. We can see, and we want you to see in this, is not to criticize you. This is to help you recognize something that is a present characteristic that must be corrected. And we know that some of you are working on it, but we know that you can work harder on it. And that is that you should have the attitude, because it is real, that you are not becoming what you're capable of becoming fast enough. Fast enough meaning as quickly as you're capable of becoming it. And you've got to stop accepting a pace of progress, like waking up today, well, here's another day, and maybe I'll learn a few lessons, and then maybe tomorrow I'll learn a few more. You're becoming too comfortable with this process. Now, what's wrong with being too comfortable? You could say, well, at least it's better than being in a place where I'm threatened by, if I don't get out of here tomorrow, I'll leave the classroom. That kind of thing was the kind of thinking that you had when you had at least one eye closed because you were still so asleep. But you've got both eyes open now, so don't make comparisons as to your progress rate. We want you to recognize that every moment that you are not exerting the degree of effort that you are capable of, you are taking undue advantage of the next level. Do you understand that? In other words, the next level has, they have put you in a place that is a very undesirable place to have you, a very undesirable place to have your teachers, and to have two members of the next level, and to have younger members of the next level. They don't want you there a moment longer than it takes for you to become what you're supposed to become in order to have proven that you are capable of taking some responsibility. And you are taking advantage of them. You are taking advantage of those they have assigned to help you. And you are taking advantage of your other classmates. Anytime you are not going full throttle. And some of you don't even know what your full throttle is. You have let the forces convince you that your full throttle is pretty weak. And your standard has to change of what your throttle is. You have got to change your standard. If you actually changed your standard and contemplated it with enough seriousness in your meditation, or when you awakened in the morning, you would have enough forethought to not fall in traps. You would be on guard. You would expect a trap at every turn. You would expect to innocently be conned into distraction or misled or influenced to drop this procedure or to overlook this or to do this experiment wrong or to do less than what would be expected of a responsible member of the next level. Now, if what we're saying is you take it too lightly, it doesn't mean enough to you. Now, by comparison, you think, well, it certainly means more to me than it ever meant before. I'm sorry, it doesn't. That's only comparing your awakened condition with your sleeping condition for you to think that way. And that's not a fair comparison. And there is not a member in a responsible position in the next level who does not have 24-hour a day aching, I mean severe aching, to grow faster and to be more keen and to plead with his own mind to not let him be conned or to fumble or to be influenced or to be unkeen where he should be keen or to take something haphazardly or carelessly or at a comfortable pace. And this does not mean that we're saying that what you must be is under severe stress. We're saying that you've got to wind your mind up so that it is under, so that its spring is tight, so that it can move and it can be alert and it can be responsible and it can function properly. But just because the spring is tight of your mind doesn't mean the watch is going to explode. The watch doesn't have to be under stress to have a tight spring. And your vehicle doesn't have to be under that much stress to have your mind that keen. Actually, your vehicle will be in better shape if your mind is that keen. Because your mind isn't going to let your vehicle be taken advantage of. If you can see that properly. I'd give anything if I thought that 50% of what we were saying we could translate into thoughts that you could get an equal degree of what we were trying to put out.
Well, the thing of it is, their minds are accepting that.
Yes.
And you all listen to this tape as many times as you need to in order to fully understand it.
I'm not putting them down. I don't want them to think that I don't think that they're getting it.
The thing of it is, you all ought to use this, if you've read this little book in this Lost Books of the Bible about Adam and Eve, how the Lord said to Adam, He promised you the world or whatever it is. He made all those promises to you. See, He didn't keep any of those promises that He made to you.
Lucifer made to Adam?
Oh, yes. And talking about Lucifer.
Yes,
and
the Lord
Adam,
was talking to Adam about the promises Lucifer had made.
Now, if Adam had had forethought, he would not have allowed Adam to con him into eating that apple or whatever.
Lucifer to con him into.
Right. you see what I'm saying? In other words, we used an example last evening when we were talking to these. They were helping us spend some energy so that we could bring this in totally. And we used an example of a story in the Old Testament where this man had been picked by the Lord to be a king of Israel, but he had never been given the actual title. But the Lord gave him a test and told him, after he had destroyed an altar or something of other gods, well, then the Lord told him to go straight out of that kingdom, to not take any drink or water or go back the way he came. Isn't that simple? And so he, in the process of going out of that particular area that he was in, he ran across this man of God, as they called him, ran into a son of a prophet, and had a few words with him, and then the man of God kept on, and the son of this prophet went on home and told his father about this man. And the prophet wanted to know which way he went because he wanted to go find him. So the son told him which direction he was headed in. So the prophet went after him and found him. And he asked him to come back to his house to have something to drink and to eat and to rest. And the man said, no, the Lord told me not to go back, not to have anything to drink or to eat, and not to go back the way that I had come. And so the prophet said, well, the Lord spoke to me.
The Lord sent an angel to me
and told me to tell you to come to our home. So the man thought, well, if the Lord spoke to him, I guess I ought to go do it. So he did it. And so while he was sitting in the man's house consuming something, the Lord spoke to him and said, you will not be buried with your father, which meant he was going to die. Okay, now, if this man had had forethought, if he had really known the Lord well enough, now he was just a human. You can't expect him to respond like members of the Bible. But if he had had forethought, he would have said, but the Lord spoke to me and gave me instructions, and I cannot go against what he has told me to do. Because have we not told you that if you, that no procedures are changed except through a certain way, certain chain of command, like you wouldn't, if we talked about something, and if you were not a Satellite 3 person, you would not go back and give an instruction to a Satellite 3 person, right? Because we have a procedure. Now we write it down. Or if a Satellite 3 person is going back, then we will give it to them, and they can put it in the book. But the thing of it is, that's not the point I'm trying to get to. The point I'm getting to is having forethought. let's say you have an unpleasant experience in the lab with an individual. You have two choices. You can take the higher side and trust that that individual is right and give in to him. What harm is there in giving in to somebody until you check a procedure out? Or you can say, let's check a procedure out in the book and see what happens. Or let's go to a third person and see if we can't work it out. But let's say you can go that way, or you can get mad and go and write a note. Now, let's say you chose to get mad and go write a note. And then, after you wrote a note, you cooled off a little bit, and your mind came in, and you began to see that your action was not right. Now and then you write a note saying, I'm sorry that I responded in that way. I had a slippage, and I want help in that way, and so on. Now, that is not exercising forethought. Anybody can slip. Not everybody can prevent slippages. And this is what you want to do. You want to prevent slippages. You want to be able to catch them before you do it, not after you do it.
Yeah, here's a point that some of you maybe have forgotten, that help wanted meetings and slippages were designed for us to get once and for all past the step of deceit. This was one of the original reasons for help wanted meetings and slippages. A deceit meaning that we would not commit any acts of conduct or ways unbecoming members of the next level and keep them secret. We would expose them. And so we designed this to help you have a means of keeping becoming alert to any conduct that you might do that was unbecoming a member of the next level, and expose it in these slippage notes and in these meetings. Now, hopefully, that step is still holding. It would make us sick at our stomachs to think that some are letting certain slippages be exposed, but already beginning to keep certain things secret again. If that's happening, then at this moment, on this tape, commit yourself to re-examination and being sure that you are not letting anything once again become private and secret in conduct unbecoming members of the next level. Because if we can't get past that step, then we can't get to the next step that T is talking about, of past the step of exposure of deceit to the step of not repeating slippage notes, of needing less help wanted meetings. In other words, it was a good step to get us honest and get things exposed. But now we don't want to be comfortable with repeated slippages, nor is it right to send slippage notes for things that really aren't matters of unbecoming next level conduct. I chew my lip. I pick my nose. Those kind of slippages, they aren't significant. You'll learn not to pick your nose or chew your lip because you've become aware of it. But you don't need to call a meeting to talk about slippages in things of that nature. But what you do need to do is examine the areas, because all of you still have them. And there are still areas of your own conduct that you are unaware that are still unbecoming conduct of members of the next level. And as you desire for them to be surfaced to your own brain, then you bring them up and you have grown a step, because you have recognized things about you that you had not previously recognized, that you had accepted as something else other than slippage or ways unbecoming members of the next level. That linked with, I am tired of reporting this slippage. Does that mean that I'm going to go on doing it but not report it? No, it means I'm going to stop slipping in that area. The least thing could happen to you if you were say you were reporting slippages about a certain type of conduct and you were doing it about once a week. That kind of conduct. I'm just using this as an example. By the time you have done it the second week, the same length of time as you did it the first one, you should be getting so all-fired mad at yourself that it should be at least, at a minimum, 2 weeks before. Now, I'm just using this as a basis because you have got to not be satisfied with periodic slippages that have not become corrected. And at least they should get further and further apart. And so that maybe the next time you slipped in that area, because if you slipped in that area knowing it was a slippage, you haven't gained anything. Even if it was 3 weeks, 4 weeks, 6 weeks apart, you haven't gained anything. If you slipped in that same area, but it came in a side window, the forces came in a side window and conned you into it, and you didn't recognize it was the same area, then I could understand a slippage note and a meeting because I have recognized another way that they can get me to slip in that same area. Therefore, I'm becoming wiser because I've recognized another way. But if I'm slipping in the same way I was slipping before and they came in the same door they came in before, then all I'm doing is being satisfied with a very slow rate of improvement or progress. And I'm sorry, that in itself is unbecoming members of the next level because they're not satisfied with slow rate of improvement or progress or correction. And you all know this. You know what we're telling you right now, and you know it clearly. And in a sense, you should recognize that I should be above that. You should recognize that I am capable of being above that, or I would not have been sent on a growth experience to the degree of this growth experience. And if I accept that I am not capable of that rate of development and improvement and strength, then I am insulting those who sent me for this task. Can you see that? Because they knew you were capable when they sent you to pass this test. They wouldn't give you a test you couldn't pass, even though you have the option to not pass it. But they wouldn't give it to you if you could not pass it, though you had the option to not exert the effort to pass it. Effort is something that is strictly up to you and must be mustered from within, out of sheer determination and love for being a responsible spoke in the wheel of next level activity.
It's really not as difficult as it seems. In other words, if we know who you are, then you can know very, very quickly. But it depends upon the effort that you exert in that direction. We're talking to you very, very strongly tonight. Strongly?
Yes.
And it's only because we know who you are.
That's right.
And it's high time that you learn who you are. It's as simple as that.
So you might as well.
And you've got to know that these silly things that these bookers do are just ridiculous. And that you don't need to be upset if somebody puts a wrong spoon, and uses the wrong spoon in the lab, or if they step on your toe, or whatever it is that happens. It's really not that important. The important thing is how do you handle that circumstance.
And he doesn't mean that the procedure is not important. She's talking about it's wrong for you to be personally offended or being upset by things. Because you can use procedures as an excuse to being upset.
Right. thinking that you are right when well, we've already discussed that, but the thing of it is you want to catch yourself before it happens. That's your lesson.
Be on guard. Wake
Be
up.
on guard. Reason out any conflict. Be diplomat. Learn how to do it in a diplomatic way. Forget about writing all those notes to Satellite 3. If you have a question about something, then, and you can't find the answer to it with the check partner or through the book, then write a note. But to be above writing a note that is written in anger or hurt or frustration, be above that. And the only way to be above it is if you feel it inside of you, feel anything like that inside of you, then go sit in meditation and try to rise above that feeling and get that mind into your vehicle. Because if you do that very many times, it won't be long before you will be knowing who you are. You will be feeling it, and it will be so strong that you will be above any of those kinds of actions or feelings, and it will be the greatest thing that ever happened to you since you've been here. If you can understand that.
You know, Lucifer might even at times, I don't know if he pulls this on you, but he could, and probably does, have you think that the task of what I must learn in preparing to go back to the next level is so big, since it has taken so long already, that it must be that it's going to take a long time, even more, and I must even prepare myself. I'm talking Lucifer in your head. I must even prepare myself for this task of preparing to go back to the next level, to take the rest of this normal life. Has he ever put that on any of your heads? If he hasn't, he might. And if you if he hasn't even said for the rest of this normal life, if he's even said for some extended period of time, if you accept that thought, then all you're doing is accepting a slow rate of growth or progress. You would not know. We would not be here in this lifetime that you are in this incarnation that you are in. We would not be here. Your eyes would not be opened to knowing that you have this task to do if you were to go to sleep again. Am I getting through to you? Do you understand that? You look puzzled.
Yes, I got it.
Okay. The only reason we are here at this time for you, and the reason that we know who we are, and the reason that you know that you're from the next level and you have this task to do, even though you don't know certain things about it that you will come to know, is because you must do it now. You aren't being given a preface to something for another lifetime. You're being given something that must be accomplished now. And if you listen to anything that will accept that it must be, since it's already taken so long, it must be going to take a lot longer, then you are willing, you're listening to those forces and letting them make you willing to a slow rate of progress, which in a sense is putting down those who have given you this chance and have even given you the knowledge of that you are from them and what you have to accomplish. Because you have to know that if they're going to get you out of here anytime soon. Can you see that? You wouldn't know this if it was something you were to accomplish way down the line. You understand that? So don't think in terms of way down the line. think in terms of, I don't know when it is that we will be acceptable on those monitors that are saying we have passed the test sufficiently to prove to the next level that we can resist and that we can hold our own for whatever menial task the next level has in mind for me to do. Because a menial task to the next level is an unbelievable task to any perspective at this level of comprehension. Can you follow that? So if you would say to yourself, my challenge is that I am not going to be a member in this class that would be a reason for a moment's delay in the departure of the class. Can you understand that? I am not. Now, if every one of you had that committal to accelerated growth of getting foresight and of staying on guard and of performing at your peak capacity, I'll tell you, it would be no time. I promise you, it would be no time until we would be departing. And we know that they are sitting, waiting for you to rev up and to be more responsible. So much of this task is already out of the way. In other words, so much of this test that you are involved in is already out of the way. The aspects of it when some came and even chose to not be even awake enough to go with that voice that they even recognized was an older member from a kingdom from which they had come. Are you following me? That's way past. And some who recognized and went with it for a while, but once the lower forces really came in and forced to attack them and to lure them to the most ridiculous lure. I mean, if you knew what you were in the next level and you could see anything of this world as inviting to you, then you're in serious trouble. And I'm talking straight. You're in serious trouble if this world still has any appeal to you, because it has nothing to offer except temporal indulgences that get you nowhere, except deeper in the pit.
Even the humans are aware that it has visible.
And so they, in order to stay dumb, in order to stay dumb, they have to stay high. They have to indulge in things that would keep them from consciousness, because even they have seen that Lucifer's promises have nothing significant to offer. And they have to try to convince themselves, as Lucifer has tried to brainwash all of them, oh yes, it's extremely significant. If you have a career and you have these certain things and you go through it and you have a good insurance policy and you go right through this life, and then there'll be another one for you, and you can grow a little in that. That's all hogwash. That's all reason for staying party to slaves to them, not party, slaves to them. Because these people are their slaves. They're all their slaves. Even in their righteousness, they're their slaves. Because not one righteousness on this planet is in truth righteousness. It is a facsimile. It is a falsehood. It is a presentation of the lower forces to make you think that his ways have goodness to offer. I don't know if you can see that, but it has no goodness to offer.
If you all could realize that the worst is over for you all. I mean, what you all had battled is a lot stronger than what you have to deal with right now. The thing that you have to deal with right now really is kind of nitty-gritty type stuff. But actually, it's not nitty-gritty. It's more or less zeroed into forethought.
Effort, right.
Effort, exerting effort in the direction of not being conned by Lucifer's force. by your booger.
Or being satisfied with your old rate of effort.
Because actually, I believe a lot of you, I feel like all of you have a desire to follow procedure. And I know the ones who write notes, a lot of notes have a desire to follow procedure. But also, you can you can have a strong desire in the wrong way, which will defeat the purpose if you respond by not exerting the effort to try to figure out how to handle a circumstance by writing a note. Did I say that right? In other words, when you're too quick to write a note without exerting the effort to figure out how to solve that particular problem on your own, with the help of a check partner or the help of checking in the procedure book, then you are preventing yourself from growing at that moment. Now, if all of you, starting right at this moment, and the ones of you who haven't heard this tape back at the craft, but starting at the moment you hear this tape, if you all would make a strong commitment saying, I want to be able to be alert enough to see how to do things beforehand instead of after it has happened. If all of you united together with desire to do that and really exert the effort to do it, we could move very quickly. Now, at this stage in the game, when we know who we are, and we know who you are, and we're sitting here waiting for you to learn who you are, then it makes sense that things will go more quickly if you will do what you came here to do. You have listened to the Lucifer force when he was so strong that you had to fight to get him up and walking out the door. But you didn't. You didn't get up. You did not get up and walk out the door. You stayed. Now that's about the strongest that he has ever been with you. And
in relationship to your own weakness.
Right. And right now what you have to do is just a matter of breaking the habit of pulling out a piece of paper, writing a note.
Then exerting enough effort to
reason it out and to catch yourself.
Forethought.
We talked to these about turning the heat off, and we said I'd write a note if I had to make a big sign saying turn the heat off. So we no sooner got it out than we came in here and saw a note on the whether or not they can see it in the dark. I don't know. Don't know if it glows. But the effort they're exerting is what's important. And of course, hopefully, they will remember to read the note before they turn the light out. That is forethought, right? Most important is to program yourself in your meditation. Tell yourself, I want to catch myself before I do something. Now, mind, catch me. Help me to catch myself. Whatever it takes, tell your vehicle or your mind to let you know about it. And in other words, exert 100%, 200% if you have in this direction. Because it's extremely important. Extremely important. And it's exciting at this stage.
The information
but it can also fade.
The information is available to you to know who you are. And we're challenging you to know who you are as quickly as you can.
Now don't come up with a name, because that's not what
we're not talking about. And if you try to apply the things that we are trying to get you to, or that we are prodding you, hoping that you will choose to apply for accelerated growth, then you can know that very quickly. And we don't even know that it's necessary that you know. Knowing who you are in that degree isn't as important to you as these other lessons we're trying to help you accomplish. Foresight, enough effort to correct yourself, to not accept habits of weakness that you think are your habits, and to be keener to the forces that would have you asleep at this time, or slow at this time, or when you wake up in the morning, or whenever it is that you have accepted that these are certain characteristics that you can't conquer, which is baloney, because you don't have any characteristics that you can't conquer. And so those things are far more important than knowing who you are. Knowing who you are is kind of a fun thing that is now available to you if you work at it.
But I don't think you will know who you are until you have accomplished what you have to accomplish prior to that awakening. In other words, it's just like a roll on the piano.
Don't send us 20 questions. We're not going to get it.
In other words, it will happen automatically. But in the process of your accomplishing the things that you are the weakest in, you will awaken to who you are. Now, whether or not
and it'll be a humbling experience to you.
It's the feeling that you will have, and don't by any means try to figure out. Let's see, maybe I can think of what it looks like on the spacecraft, or remember what kind of clothes they wear, or something like that. That's not what we're talking about, because you won't ever remember that. I don't believe right now. You may remember it as you step on the spacecraft. Everything will be very familiar to you. And you might step on and say, oh, hi, there's old Jake. Or there's old Roger. Hi, long time no see. Or something like that. But the thing of it is, what you want to remember is what it is like to be a member at the next level. Complete control, where you are handling things the way members at the next level handle things. Now this is what you're awakening to. And in the process of doing that, then of course, more will come your way. But we don't want you to get off on a little fantasy trip. We want you to stick to reality and examine yourself. And if you have caught yourself in a slippage, then vow that very moment that you will never do it again. And if you have a strong enough mind in at that time, you won't do it again. Because before you do it, you will catch yourself. And not allow yourself to have an out by writing a slippage note. It isn't okay to write a slippage note. You don't want to be satisfied with writing a slippage note. You want to conquer that slippage. Procedure-wise,
a slippage note is better than dishonesty.
Right, that's what I was going to say. Procedure is to write a slippage note if you have a slippage. But do you want to be satisfied with writing slippage notes? Because every time you write one, you are letting us know that you have flunked a test that was given to you.
A kind of slippage
at that moment
that we would not find fault with would be a slippage of an area that you had not been aware of before. Something that you had recognized yourself that you didn't have the eyes to see, that you were less than on track in that area. And that kind of slippage note, because you're expanding, you're growing, you're seeing yourself from a higher perspective, from a more critical judgment, from because there's still things that you still overlook about yourself, that you don't recognize are still less than next level conduct. Those areas that you have recognized, you shouldn't be satisfied with repetitious slippage. Those areas that you have not recognized, that kind of slippage would be for your growth. That kind of slippage, no, not slippage, that kind of recognition would be for your growth.
It's good that you all are recognizing your slippages, and we don't want to put you down in that way. But now we want you to try to think before you have a slippage. You see what we mean? It was right for you to go through what you have gone through on the slippages, but now we're asking you try to catch yourself before you have the slippage,
Right.
so you don't have to write about it. But we don't want you to be dishonest and blind yourself to the fact that you
Say,
have
well,
a
kids
slippage.
say they don't want me to write repeated slippage notes on this, and since I've repeated it so many times, I think I won't let this one be known.
I'll just get
That
about
would
this.
be that would be disastrous.
That would be
It would
worse.
be worse to not present a slippage note in an area that you slipped in than it would to present it even if it were repetitious. Now, we have dropped some hints of certain things to you tonight that we have become aware of in our understanding of this planet and the goings-on here during your test that would add up to updates and making some previous thinking obsolete. But don't worry about that. We will clarify those more to you after you have absorbed what we have given to you tonight. In other words, you can get involved in, let's see, they said this, I heard that, I've listened to that tape a number of times, and they made this little comment about, goodness, what does that do with the thought that, how does that fit in with this? And you might recognize some little hints that our understanding updates some previous understandings of what's going on this card. Don't worry about it. Don't waste any time on it. Spend your time on what needs to be done. Okay?